Hi everyone, welcome to another installment of Dwayne Allen Guitar Concepts, and we're going to put today's lesson in the advanced category. This is for those of you who are looking for like a different approach to maybe soloing or improvising and change things up and change your lines a little bit. We're going to talk today about intervallic playing, okay? Some of you may know what that is, some of you may not know what it is, but basically you know, when most guitarists are soloing or whatever, they're thinking in a melodic way where they're kind of going up and down kind of a scale pattern, right? So if you that kind of a thing, right? You're just kind of playing lines that are kind of moving up and down stepwise within a scale. But sometimes it's nice to break things up and move intervallically where you're kind of melodically jumping up and down. And what it does is it just gives you a different color, different sound, different approach. You kind of break things up. So you might be like, I was in A minor Dorian or whatever. So you might do something like a... that kind of a thing. That's what we call intervallic playing. Now, are those the kind of lines that are easy to sing? No. You know, sometimes, a lot of the time, you should be creating beautiful melodies that you can sing, but sometimes we're a harmonic instrument. We can jump around intervallically. Sometimes I just played intervallically and I was doing it in a melodic way, but you can also play them harmonically where you're playing the notes together. That kind of thing. That really breaks everything wide open, you know. I always tell all my students and people who ask me, you know, how do you break free of playing the same things over and over again, the same licks and all that kind of stuff. It's, you do things like this, you know, where you wouldn't normally think to play that way, but it really adds a lot more interest and texture to your lines and everything. So, how do we learn how to play like this? Okay, well, it's something that, it's a big part of my playing that people have, you know, said, you know, I like the intervallic things you do, whatever. This thing, you got to work on it. So how do you work on it? Well, the first thing that you really should do, and this, like a lot of the things that I give you, are going to take time to develop. But what I tell people to do is start practicing all of your scales in intervals. So like, let's just take simple C major, right? You can take all your C major scales and you start playing them in thirds, where you go like this. Whatever, right? I just did those in thirds. And you do with all the different forms. This one, and so forth. Then you start learning all of them in fourths. Then you start learning all of them in fifths. Then sixths. Then sevenths. Right? You do that in all the different forms. Be able to do it where you can feel really comfortable. You notice that I'm also moving this way, because you definitely want to always try to think more horizontally on your guitar, and I have a video about that kind of playing. You should check it out. So, so learning your major scales, I just did them all in the key of C. You got to be able to do them in every key. So wow, that's about 6 months of work, maybe, right? It's a lot of work, but remember, as I said in some of my other videos, if you can do this with all of your major scales, then you've just covered all your modes, right? So if I want to learn G mixed Lydian, I just did C major, so it's the same thing. I'm just starting on G. If I want to do B locran, right? I just did C. It's all the same. All of those modes come from C major. So if you know C major, you know all the modes. So you learn those first. You learn the finger patterns and you get used to them. A big thing with everything that I teach is you've got to sing everything you learn. So when you're practicing these, you should sing these, because when you're improvising, you should sing. And if you're used to hearing these intervallic sounds, you'll actually hear those lines in your head as you're playing. So when you're practicing, you might go fourths, fifths, start stretching your voice. Right? So once you get good at that, then you can take any of the chords of C and you just lock it in your looper. I don't have my looper set up, but you get the idea. So, and you just start trying to improvise using the different intervals. You know, you could stick with one interval the whole time. And you start going around that way. Or you might try, you know, you do fours. Notice how I'll go up one interval and then kind of go backwards. There's a million patterns that you can do. A lot of musicians would do something like this and they would make up like a ton of patterns and a ton of licks. Okay, that's cool to do that. That's not what I do. What I do is I just will improvise with an idea and I'll just do it and do it and do it and do it until I start hearing all this stuff, so I don't have to have a whole bunch of memorized patterns. That's not what I like to do. A lot of people do that, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, for me, I'd rather improvise with a concept and just get that sound in my head, so that way when I'm improvising, it just comes out naturally and I'm not playing pre-learned licks, you know. So, you know, and remember, you could do this with any of the chords of C. So if I'm doing like a D Dorian thing, right, I might go... mix the intervals. You can do thirds, fifths, sixths, whatever. You can mix them around. Right? I'm kind of jumping around. Sevenths. Sloppy there, but you get the idea. I'm kind of just jumping around different intervals, okay? And what I'm doing there is I'm playing melodically. I'm playing one at a time, but you can make all of these harmonic, where you're playing the intervals together. So if I'm in D Dorian, thing, really cool, interesting sounds, right? You can do any of the modes within C. So if I'm on F Lydian, right, I do the same things, the intervals in C major. So, like I said earlier, I would take one of those chords, lock it in my looper, let it ring, let it ring, let it ring, and just experiment. It almost lets you play like contrapunto, where you're playing like two different lines at once. You might go... You can think contrapuntally. That's a whole other thing that gets pretty deep. But when you're doing intervals, it's two different melodies going at the same time. So it's kind of like, right? That's one melody, and then, right? Right. So this is something that you can really work on and get some really cool ideas. You know, when I do it, I'm just mixing all of them together. So like I'm not technically going up and down sevenths and then six for a while. I mix them all together. So if I'm playing over, say, like a let's do a G mixed lady, right? I'm kind of just playing what I'm hearing in my head, but if you look at what I'm doing, I'm mixing all the different intervals together. So I'm going, right? That's not very melodic what I'm doing there, but it's breaking up, just playing melodic all the time, which is never a bad thing, but sometimes you just want to break things up, right? We're not even talking about playing with chords right now. We're talking about just two notes. So like if I'm soloing over a G mixolydian, I might play melodically and then go intervallic. I might go whatever. I'm just being creative right now. I'm just coming up with different ideas. It really gives different ideas to your lines and stuff, okay? So these are, you know, if you notice I'm doing all this rubato, I'm not even thinking about swinging in time and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, you can deal with that too. Usually when I'm learning a new concept, if it's like a new scale or something like intervallic playing, I'll usually just get my looper out, put a chord in there, and just do it rubato, because I don't want to think about 25 things at once. I just want to think about, okay, what's the concept? And I'm just experimenting. I'm playing things that I hear. I'm not worried about swinging and locking in. Once you do this for a while, then you could start trying to work it into your tunes. You can just do this with tunes, you know, like if I'm playing a tune like All the Things You Are, you know, you can just try. Obviously, I wouldn't play intervallic the entire time like I just did. I'm just showing you. You can work on that. You could say, okay, I'm going to play this tune, and I'm only going to play intervallically for a while, just to get the idea in your head. And then when you're playing for real, you can mix it in with melodic playing and harmonic playing, all that kind of stuff. Another thing to think about is, if you can do this in the major scale, you can do it in any other type of scale. Melodic minor, harmonic minor. So let's say you take all your melodic minor scales. C melodic minor. Right, you do it 6. 7s, and then any of the modes that are in the C melodic minor. Oh my gosh, right? So if you're first, I would just do the 1. Just do C minor major 9 or 7. Lock that in your looper. playing harmonic intervals right now. Or you might get a little further out. You're still on that C, right? It's really beautiful, right? Any of the modes of C melodic minor. So if you're doing like a D Phrygian, right? If you're doing like a let me see, yeah, if you're doing like a D Phrygian, right? If you're doing like a F Lydian dominant. Like an A minor 7 flat 5, which is like the 6th chord of C melodic minor. A long time on these concepts, but it's all new stuff for your playing, you know. One thing I forgot to point out earlier, when you're doing your intervals, especially like when you're doing them harmonically, where you're doing them together, right? To fit the scale, like let's say if you're doing fourths, it's not going to be perfect fourths the whole time. You might have a couple tritones in there because of the scale. So if like you're in the key of C, that's got to be a tritone because you would have a flat 7, which is not in the key of C major. So some of your intervals will change. It might be like fourths and then tritones occasionally. There's a tritone. Right, or if you're doing like thirds, you're going to do major thirds and minor thirds. Minor third, minor third, minor third, major, major, major. Right, I was doing the melodic minor, but you get the idea. So the intervals have to fit the scale. So I hope this gives you guys some new ideas. You know, like I said, the main way to practice these is number one, you have to just practice them. Learn the fingerings, learn the patterns so that you're comfortable with them. That's going to take a while. It takes practice. You know, have that as part of your, when you're practicing scales and arpeggios, one of the things that should be part of your scale practice is when you do intervals like that. It helps you break the scales up. Then when you get comfortable with that, you take a chord, lock it in, any chord out of any of the modes or whatever, and you just practice soloing over that, get used to the concept, and then eventually, like I did it in All the Things You Are, you can use it in a tune, and just make that as like one of the aspects of your playing. It's an aspect of my playing. I do it a lot. I'll play melodically, I'll play intervallically, I'll play, I did a lesson on grips. You know, the more tools you have in your toolbox, the more fun you're going to have and the more interesting your playing is going to be. And what you want to do is find your own unique ways of doing some of this stuff, because I know that I've found that, you know, most kind of advanced jazz guitar players, they know all these concepts, but you'll find your own way of doing it. Like when I play, the way I do these things, I don't think that I sound like other people doing it. You know, there's other people who do it way better than me or whatever, but I kind of have found my own way of doing these things, and that's all you can ever ask for, right? So, you know, I would say don't try to worry about, like, how can I do it exactly like Pat Metheny or Gilad Hexelman or whatever. It doesn't matter. Do it your way. They're using the same concept, but they're doing it in their way, and try to do it in your way. You know, that's the goal of all this stuff. So I hope you got something out of this. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the lesson, please hit the subscribe button, hit like. Leave questions or comments, and I'll try to get back to you. And thank you so much for checking this out, and we'll see you next time. Have a good one.